So, how are you?
Uh, well, good morning for me. Good afternoon for you.
Yeah.
Okay, we are doing okay. We are waiting for to see if there are developments about Iran because it might
Yes.
might affect us. So my friends that are flying abroad are saying,
Hmm.
should I fly or not? Because maybe they'll close
The air.
uh,
Okay.
the
Okay.
air travel maybe or whatever. And I tell them we have no answer because a surprise attack is a surprise attack. So if it's not a surprise,
Ah,
it's not a surprise. We don't know what Trump is thinking.
yeah. I was surprised, but at the same time, the last, no, I mean the latest preemptive attack against Iran, I think that worked very well, to weaken the regime, really. I mean, what do you think about, the last preemptive attack?
Uh,
Do you think that
well,
that affected, uh,
yeah,
this?
I think that the 12th Day War in general
Mhm.
and the American attack did weaken the regime because the regime is building its legitimacy in Iran, in its own population, um, built on the fact that it's extending power over all the region, building this narrative of being a regional power,
Mm.
and asking the Iranian population to suffer economic prices, right? Very high inflation,
Mm.
taxation, problems with services, and so on, because of this successful foreign policy, allegedly, right? That extends Iranian power all over the area,
Okay.
and is supposed to somehow, in the long run at least,
Mm.
profit the Iranian nation. Now, when
I
something
think
like this
so. Mm.
happens, uh, it weakens the whole arguments of the regime because one, it turns out that it's not so powerful,
Mm.
and in the conflict against Israel, it
Mm.
was the losing side. And even more significant is that only a few hours of attack by the US have at least scaled back for many years the Iranian nuclear program.
Uh,
So, in fact, it showed, I think, the population of Iran, the
mm.
weakness of the regime. I think that at that time, um, in the summer, when the war was going on, there weren't any demonstrations because I think that many demonstrations thought would it would uh, it would seem unpatriotic to attack the regime while there is a war. But in fact, I think that widely among the population, people at the least accepted that the claims of the regime are not really, they not stand up to scrutiny. So people started to ask,
Mm.
we're, we are paying so much money
Mhm.
to help the policies of the regime in Gaza, in Yemen, in
Mhm.
Lebanon, in Syria, whatever, and to build this nuclear weapons program. And at the end, it's worth nothing. We're getting nothing for it. Hamas is getting hammered. Hezbollah is getting hammered. Syria, Assad, Syria fell. The regime fell down, and so they're saying one of the chants now in the demonstrations is uh, uh, not Gaza, not Lebanon. We want our money home, meaning instead of sending the resources from Iran to all over the world to
Mhm.
fight wars, whatever.
Against, the Zionism.
Exactly. So I think that yes, you are right. The last conflict did weaken the regime very much. I think that the demonstration today are a direct result of that conflict and the weakness
Mm.
the weakness of the regime was exposed, and so it
Yeah.
caused a lot of what is happening.
See, I have been watching the programs, with foreign minister, all these the people from the regime saying this thing, free, Iran. demonstration has been planned by the Zionist regime. Here again, Prime Minister Netanyahu is to blame for some reason.
Yes.
They mixture very we in a weird manner. They're talking about, Israel in general when they talk about Zionism, but they add some essence, which is Prime Minister Netanyahu, and they mix, and they try to use it in both ways for some reason. It's very strange, and it's a propaganda, right?
Yes, but also their argument,
Hmm.
on the one hand, they are saying that they are great power and they will hurt or destroy Israel. There is in Tehran a clock that is showing the a countdown to the destruction of Israel in 2030. On the one hand, they say they're so powerful, they
Hmm.
can extend their power to destroy Israel. And on the other hand, one, they expect Israel not to react. It would be strange. And secondly, they are saying that Israel is so powerful that it basically controls the streets in Iran. So their whole argument is very strange. One day they're very powerful, one day they're very weak, and so on. So it looks like an attempt to use the argument to cut it both ways,
Hmm.
meaning in English they say to have the cake and eat it, basically saying that they are so powerful that they extend their power all over the region. On the other hand, they do not control their own country.
Mm. See, I think that people do not really understand what happened in 1979. And
Yes.
it has a lot to do with Japan for many reasons. But, you know, if you can explain a little to the audience, that would be great.
Okay. So um, basically,
Hmm.
the what happened in 1979 it was that Iran was at that time um, uh, a semi-constitutional regime. The Shah,
Hmm.
the king,
Yeah.
had a government. There were political elections, but they were not really representative. Meaning, it was closer to, let's say, Jordan or such
Oh, okay.
countries in the Middle East. So it was a relatively, you could say, benign monarchy. Certainly more free than today's Saudi Arabia or
Hmm.
Qatar or those countries or Kuwait and so on. Um, and Iran was on the way of, to prosperity because of oil. It was doing rather well,
Hmm.
and like many countries in the course of development, it encountered very various, sometimes an economic downtown, sometimes other problems, and um, there were very strong demonstrations
Hmm.
asking for more democracy, for a more representative government.
Hmm.
Now, ironically, if the regime,
Hmm.
the Shah, the former regime, the king or emperor of Iran was, if he would have adopted a far harsher policy, he might probably have crushed the demonstrations.
Hmm.
However, his uh, his policies in looking back at it
Hmm.
were not very repressive,
Yeah,
and
yeah, that's true. I
there
remember
was
that as
also
well.
a
Yeah.
lot of pressure
Hmm.
from European countries and the US,
Yes.
not to repress the demonstrations very harshly.
Hmm.
So actually, tomorrow, I mean, on the 16th of January,
Yeah.
1979,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the Shah voluntarily left Iran
Mm-hmm.
in order to uh, try to calm the area, and there was appointed a kind of temporary government of national unity. And there were a few weeks where there were attempts to find some kind of, I would say, grand coalition that would unite all the groups and stabilize the country and create new policies.
Yeah.
But I think 2 weeks later,
Hmm.
Ayatollah Khomeini came back to Iran. He was in exile in France, and the French let him come back to Iran. And
That's
within
an unbelievable thing that happened, really.
and yes, and within less than 3 months, basically the religious wing of the protesters took over the country,
Mm.
and within I would say less than 1 year, it had gained control and made Iran into I would say, a dictatorship.
Yeah.
So
I
yes,
I really, really don't, well, not, I am aware of some of the facts, but I really wonder, like, the process of people's, thoughts really in mind to let, that cult, religious cult, uh, you know, well, he probably he dictated, you know, but I, you know, I really see some kind of communism in his ideology as well. Not just, theological, but, his cruelty is in some ways really close to communism. Like,
well, look, in fact, the Iranian regime is a kind of uh, it's not very coherent ideologically, I would say. Meaning,
Mhm.
it's not. It's like made up. It's patched up.
Mhm.
Basically, in history, there was never a religious regime in any Islamic country
Mhm.
ruled by the clerics. So it's a new invention. And the main appeal of the clerics in Iran, originally in 1979, 1980, it was that they were regarded as honest, while there was widespread corruption. So, a lot of the
Ah,
demonstration were against corruption, and
uh-huh.
so the clerics were regarded as being honest, usually poor, upright men. So that was their appeal. Of course, very soon, all the ruling clerics became very wealthy, and their
Mhm.
family became millionaires, and some of them even billionaires. But that was the original appeal. So they
It's like
mixed up
Hamas.
exactly. So they mixed some ideas from communism, capitalism, other things, and they made like Iran is nominally a democracy because there are elections there as an elected president. However, over the president, there is a kind of council of religious authorities that
Uh-huh.
basically can decide, can annul any decision by the government, by the president, and it controls really, it has control of the armed forces. So it is like a kind of make believe democracy because when people are talking about who's leading Iran, no one says the president of Iran. No one
Mhm.
says his name is Pechzian. No one thinks he rules Iran. He's like some kind of bureaucrat. In fact, everyone understands that the real ruler is Khamenei,
Yeah.
right? Khamenei is not elected, is not subjected to any judicial authority or any constitutional authority. So it's
So he's not legitimate, right? Actually.
exactly, he's not legitimate,
Uh,
and he has the supreme control
mm,
of he and a small circle of clerics.
mm,
They have supreme control over the political system, meaning they can tell the president what to do, and
mm,
also they have control over the army and over the judiciary. So in fact, they control the judges. So basically, you can say that the president and the government of Iran that are elected
Mm-hmm.
control things like traffic
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I don't know, and banks, and that's it. They don't have control over the military power. They don't have control over the judiciary, and they always have the veto of the supreme power. So in fact, it's a dictatorship that masks itself as a kind of democracy. So this is the nature of this regime. Now, it's not even you could say it's not even representative
Mm-hmm.
of the I would say of the religious establishment, because in Iran some of the ayatollahs support Khamenei and some of them don't. Many of there is like in the Shia structure there are like clerics, and then there are I would say like the equals maybe of bishops in the Catholic Church. So they are Marja, and the greatest them of are called ayatollahs. And in the last two generations, because now there are a lot of ayatollahs, there's something called grand ayatollahs. So of these grand ayatollahs, like the you could say the 20 or 30 greatest religious. So I would say that maybe half support the regime. Many others think that this regime has lost even the way of the true religion because of corruption,
Oh.
clearly, because they say that actually they reject the idea that the clerics should govern the country. They say that even if in 1979 there was
Mm.
a special situation where clerics have had to be involved in politics, it's wrong for them to run things day to day. So
Mm.
basically, a lot of religious authorities in Iran are actually silenced by the regime.
Yeah.
All those who said now is the right time for the ayatollahs to go back to the mosque and leave the government to the people. Of course, Khamenei and his gang don't want that. So they oppress even those religious authorities who disagree with them. So it's not even a, sorry, it's not even simply
Mm.
a religiously based regime. It's a kind of medley of various things
Mm-hmm.
covered by a supposed authority of religion, but not really, in a sense.
Yeah,
It's
I
basically a
really,
dictatorship
really
that
felt
uses
that
everything it can.
because, you saw the daughter, dancing in bikini with with her friends. Like it was terrible. She was, joking about uh Shaba Flavi, that, chant, and what she was drunk. You know, she was singing with, other friends from the regime. It's just unbelievable. Probably they have funds in the foreign countries. I think the US a secretary uh, uh
Of the
that's
treasury.
yeah, of treasury is, tracing all the money basically,
Well,
of
I don't think that they can trace all the money, but
yeah.
clearly there is money that is being taken out because I believe that the regime families have built nest eggs outside of the Iran, not only now, for many years,
Yeah.
because many of the families uh, do not like to live in Iran. There's too many restrictions, so they live in the U.S., in the Gulf Emirates, in Europe, and
uh,
they have a lot of money there. They buy expensive cars. They
yeah.
live in the best neighborhoods. So all this money has to come from somewhere. So
Mm,
I believe they have accounts in the US, in Switzerland, and so on. So I'm not talking about money that is being moved now
mm,
because of the demonstrations. I mean, the, the the regime families probably have money from many years ago already all over. So of
mm.
course the US can trace some of it, especially the money that is being moved now from
In the
Iran abroad.
US, right? Especially. Yeah.
Exactly. But if someone brought money to the US or to France 20 years ago,
Yeah.
It would
It's
be very hard now to trace it. Probably it was used to buy houses, to buy other stuff, and move to other accounts and so on. So
yeah,
there are
they're
two
not
sides.
using their names either. Yeah.
One is the corruption, meaning these families have a
Mm,
lot of funds taken from the poor Iranian people and being used to fund a very lavish lifestyle. So this is one side. The other is now that some of the regime are contemplating that they might have to run away from Iran. So
mm.
they're moving money abroad for funds. So these are two different aspects of this money being moved out of Iran.
Yeah, I really wonder who disclosed that, video of this daughter. You know, she was holding the camera basically, right? So, but it's, you know, what I really think is, what you said in the first place, which is about over 20,000 people killed in Iran right now. And it is just unbelievable. And, I know that the regime has murdered people by hanging for many reasons. That was something I could not forgive for years, really. And they were, brutal against the citizens. And they silenced, the citizens in many ways by hacking into the phones, in every possible way, like China, in a sense. So, I wonder, how really the regime is going to collapse, or you know.
Well, first of all, we have to understand that the Iranian regime is
Mhm.
far less efficient than the
Mm,
Chinese regime in
yeah,
repression. The Chinese regime doesn't have to kill that many people because it's successful in controlling the population.
yeah,
So it controls most people. Only in
that's
some
true.
cases it has to intervene. It
Mhm.
can throw someone in jail, and it doesn't actually have to kill a lot of people all the time because it does control the population, unfortunately. But that is the case. They are good at it in a way, if you will, in the sense that I mean.
Yeah.
But the Iranians are not that good at it, meaning that these waves of repression, the
Mhm.
waves of killings in the street or
Mhm.
the executions
Mhm.
are the reflection of a failure of repression, basically, because it means that I mean a good dictatorial regime has very few people that are successful in doing anti-regime work.
Mm,
While in Iran, for one, these gigantic demonstrations clearly show that despite the regime's work in monitoring calls, basically they have the internet and phone calls in
mm.
Iran have been uh, blocked for
Yeah,
almost
shut
2 weeks
down.
now.
Yeah.
And this was because the government wasn't successful in monitoring the calls
Mhm.
enough in order to stop the information getting through the people to make the demonstrations
Mhm.
and the information getting out to the world to witness it. So even after they stopped the communication system, some communication got out. Basically, there were
But Starlink has been working, I hear.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Elon Musk opened Starlink
Yeah.
to for free to Iran, but
Yeah,
of
it's
course,
great.
in order to connect to Starlink,
Mhm.
you need a special modem. It's
Yeah.
not that you can from your phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So actually, the regime showed that it caught a quantity of
Mm,
Starlink connection materials that was being smuggled into Iran, and I'm assuming that other shipments did make it in. So again, this shows that the demonstrators are successful in still creating connections and having communication equipment. So the only resort
Mhm.
remaining to the regime is basically killing people, shooting them in the street. So
Yeah.
this is actually a sign of losing control, not of having control. Because if you have control, you don't need to kill a lot of people, right? You stop the demonstration before it happens.
Mhm.
You put in jail the people who are organizing it.
Yeah.
But but the fact that you have to kill people in the streets, so many of them, means that you do not control the demonstration. You do not have a handle of things. So
Mhm.
basically, I think that all this violence is clearly showing that at the moment, at least, the regime does not have a full control of the
Mhm.
country. It's very unsuccessful in
Mhm.
its repression.
Oh, so, what do you think of, there are chants of, Shah Pahlavi, coming back. In my opinion, this may not be the case, in your opinion, but I think that he should come back for transition at least, because of it's like, he is a symbolic existence, like, the Emperor of Japan, for example. This is just an example, and the Emperor of Japan is very different from Shah Pahlavi, but I believe that there should be something symbolic so that the national identity is unified at some point. This is
Well,
I don't know.
clearly, clearly, the problem of the opposition in Iran
Yeah.
is that it does not have
Hmm.
any kind of organizational structure.
Hmm.
Meaning, unlike the opposition in 79
That's what
that
I'm
could
worried
rely
about. Yeah.
on the religious system of religious seminaries and religious figures, so it had kind of a structure in place. The opposition currently, there is no party, there is no apparent leadership, there is
Mm.
no organizing structure.
Like a political
It's all
group, you mean?
grassroots.
Uh-huh.
So the question is, who can tell people what should they do? Who can have the discussions with the Americans and so on? So what happened is this development with Pahlavi is relatively new, meaning in previous waves of demonstrations,
Mhm.
there wasn't a wide call for the return of the prince,
Oh.
Prince Pahlavi, because uh, I think that because that demonstrations got stronger and stronger,
Mhm.
and there was need for some figure to
Mhm.
be the leadership in order for people to believe that it's possible to take down the regime. And so basically, I think that it's not that Pahlavi himself has a very strong structure within Iran,
Oh,
but
okay.
rather the demonstrations
Mhm.
saw that calling for him is annoying the regime very much. And also, he was a figure that is identifiable
Mhm.
in the world, meaning
Oh.
when the French government or the American government
Mhm.
wants to discuss things about Iran, there isn't any kind of government in exile or uh, a party or anything that you could discuss this with. So basically, by default, if you want, the prince has become the representative of the Iranian people. And so he has now become the voice, meaning when he's talking on the media,
Mhm.
he's being the voice of these Iranians because there is no other way. So it's in a way, he's become the leader by default.
Mhm.
And uh, it doesn't mean anything about what Iran will be after the falling of the regime, because we do not know. No one knows. Not I, not you, not Pahlavi. What actually the Iranian people want? We only know that they don't want this regime. But will it be a democracy, a monarchy, a constitutional monarchy? This is up to the Iranians to decide. At this point, the function of Pahlavi is basically as a spokesman,
Mhm.
and he was elected, if you want, by the fact that the demonstrations in the streets are calling for him. So
Oh.
it shows that these are he became the recognizable face
Mhm.
of the opposition. So uh, clearly the regime is facing for the first time a leader that people around the world can recognize. Before that, the leadership of the opposition in Iran didn't have a face, didn't have a structure. There weren't anyone you could talk to and discuss things and help them even. How would you help Iranians, in the past? Now he's making calls so that, for instance, demonstration can be coordinated because he's calling on the media for
Mm.
demonstrations to start at 8 p.m.
Oh.
So he does not really have to phone or contact specifically people. The moment he puts them out, the information gets in. And I know I have met him. So I know that he has contacts inside Iran
Mm.
with some people, even some officials of the regime that are uneasy with the direction it's coming. They're thinking of maybe, changing sides or things like that.
Mm.
But we have to understand that the weakness of the opposition is in two areas. One, it does not have a structure alternative to the regime. So, when we talk about demonstration, there are demonstrations all over Iran. But let's say the demonstrators took control of some town. What would they do with it? Who would lead it? What is needed? Those things are not in place. There is no structure alternative to the government. So the structural weakness of the opposition is one. The opposition is very popular, but has no structure, has no hierarchy, has no leadership, except for Pahlavi, and he's outside of Iran. The second point is that in every change of regime, change of government, the main point is um, the control of the armed forces. So this change can come in two ways. Either there is an uprising and there is a civil war. It happens sometimes. In some countries, there is a civil war. The other possibility is that parts of the military change sides. So the military structure in Iran now is made of basically uh, one side are the ideologically committed. It's called the Revolutionary Guards.
Yes.
These are these are the people that are most loyal to the regime.
Mhm.
They are ideologically loyal. They also get financial remuneration. So they are the core people of the regime, something that the Shah didn't have. And so this is the strength of the regime. On the other hand, there is the regular army, which is it's large, but it's made of regular Iranians. So we have to assume that some of them are pro-regime and some of them are anti-regime. And if the army is reflecting the majority of Iranians, so we can suppose that the majority of the Iranian army is
Mhm.
not supportive of the regime. However, their officers are appointed by the regime. So uh, um, if we look, for example, at the fall of the communist regimes in Eastern Europe in the late 80s, what
Mhm.
happened is that these regimes collapsed when the army refused to do their bidding. Meaning, in Romania, the regime of Ceausescu collapsed within hours when the army refused to. Ceausescu ordered the army to kill the demonstrators. The army leadership refused to do it, and within hours the regime fell. And the same with in the Soviet Union, uh, there was a coup of
Oh,
the Communist
yes.
Party
Right.
against Gorbachev,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they called in the army.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, the army commanders
Mhm.
refused to shoot with
Yeah.
the tanks against the population. But not the army commanders, the generals. I mean, the people on the ground, the lower officers. So the general could give an order, but the regular soldiers and the let's say the captains, the majors,
Mhm.
the colonels did not actually carry this out.
Mhm.
So uh, in
So
order for the
you
regime
mean like
to
the
fall in
military,
Iran,
yeah,
what?
military coup, right? You mean?
Well, it could be a coup, but not necessarily a coup. It could be simply that the military lay down its arms. Meaning,
Oh,
think for a moment that the regime would call the army to
mm,
repress a demonstration in Tehran, and
mm,
it brings in 20,000 soldiers. And
mm,
the soldiers, they don't have to rise up against the government. They can simply refuse to shoot the demonstrators.
mm,
Then the repressive arm of the regime has become useless. It cannot stop the demonstration. At that point, the demonstrators would walk in the parliament, the government houses, and
mm.
so the regime has to run away. So what I'm saying, one possibility is a coup. The other possibility is simply the army not participating in repression. And so what happened in the last upheaval in Iran in 1979,
Mm.
there wasn't a coup. But at a certain point, the army refused to repress demonstrators, and the Shah had to run away because he didn't have control of the armed forces. So the same thing is hoped for in this case, meaning if the army refuses to repress the demonstrations or even joins the demonstrations.
Yeah,
The,
like yeah, yes.
if some army commanders
Mm,
recognize Pahlavi as their leader, then you have an army. Then, so again, what I'm saying is this could become like a kind of civil war with some of the army going one direction, some of the army in another direction, or the army against the Revolutionary Guard, whatever.
oh, yeah.
Or it could be simply that the regime loses its capability to give orders to the army and the orders are executed. So, but this is the crucial point. The
Mm,
crucial point is to whom the armed forces are listening, are obedient,
mm,
and so I have to say I'm a bit pessimistic because at the moment I do not see any signs that the Iranian army is ready to switch sides. But these things happen very rapidly. If there is a change,
mm.
it will not. It will be like uh, tonight, all the army units return to their bases instead of going where the government told them, or something like that. It
Oh, I
it will be very swift, and so of course the regime knows that,
see.
and that is why it's so nervous. That is why it's repressing so violently
Mm.
their demonstrations because it's afraid of that. But we have to look at what the army does to understand if this opposition to the regime is successful.
Oh, that's very interesting because, that is a very interesting point, and I really think that that is crucial. I was talking with my friends about what would happen in Iran, and he was talking about, the socialism, in existing in Iran, and at the same time, there you mentioned, as you mentioned, there it's very hard to decide who is, at this point there is no one who is ruling the country. So, um, besides that, Khamenei, so, I really think it's very interesting to look at what Shah Pahlavi has been doing. I read his, comments a lot, and I really wonder, how much influence he would have, at the point, and I really think that he has been influencing, people in good ways right now. And really, I really hope that it goes towards, a very positive ways, and affect Iranian people and Iranian army ultimately this time again. But I really think that, at some point, like Iran is right now abusing Israel to, because it's because of Israel, it's because of this and that, all that Israel. And like I really wonder why they still want to talk about Israel and blame Israel. And I mean, at this point, there is no reason, I mean, they cannot erase or exterminate Israel for sure. And, because of the
It,
weakness.
it, it has nothing to do with Israel, really.
Yeah.
It's the underpinning, the ideological underpinning of the regime.
Yeah.
Meaning, in 1979, there was no strategic conflict at all. There was no strategic problem for Iran with Israel. Israel actually was an ally of Iran.
Yeah.
There was no history of war, of a conflict, of opposing interest, nothing with Iran and Israel. So in 1979, when the Ayatollah's regime came to power,
Mm.
immediately they identified, uh, they regard themselves as the liberators of the Muslims. And so they identified immediately what they define as the big Satan, America, and little Satan is Israel. And this had nothing to do with actual facts. In fact, America and Jimmy Carter assisted
Mhm.
the Ayatollahs to topple the Shah, thinking
Yeah, like
it might
that's
bring
what,
forward
yes.
democracy.
Yeah.
So America was not against the regime. Israel certainly wasn't. But they, from their own point of ideology of
Mhm.
becoming the dominant power in the Middle East, by using Islamist ideology, which rejects Western ideals, rejects the West, rejects America, and rejects Israel. So this is the underpinning, this is their ideology.
Mhm.
So it's not something that has to do with interest. So you're asking, why should they even, attack Israel now or criticize Israel at this point? What interest? Their interest is not anything practical. It's their core ideology. They cannot leave it because it's like the red flag for the communists.
So basically, Aragachi, this foreign minister has been speaking around on the media, in the media, saying that it's because of Israel, like, like 90, probably 100%. But it sounds like, he's like put in a corner, really, really, like I don't think he is in a very comfortable position right now, for sure. And
Well,
I really,
they have no argument to make,
mm,
meaning instead of addressing the complaints of the demonstrator,
mm,
let's remember the demonstrations started because of inflation, because of
yes,
the government
bank
cannot supply heating,
collapsed. Yeah.
right? And because there is a lack of water.
Mhm.
So these are the original reasons for the demonstrations, not not foreign policy.
Yeah.
So the fact that the government cannot say, yes, we will supply heating to the country. In much of Iran now, the weather is sub-zero temperature,
Oh my goodness.
and,
There's no
and
heating system, right?
well,
Basically.
the heating system is not working properly
Mm.
because there is not enough gas and
Electricity.
oil to
Yeah.
heat it. Now, how can it be? Because Iran has enormous quantities of gas and oil, but their system is so corrupt and it's so not maintained at a high level, the infrastructure, because they're giving all their money to this foreign project that in many areas the I would say the gas or the oil, the petrol
Mm.
is not available to use for heating. And the same with water. Until a month ago, there were water shortages in Tehran.
Mm.
Now it's snowing, so there is at least people will not die of thirst. But it's ironical because Iran has all these resources and natural resources,
Mm.
and it cannot even heat or feed its population. And so at this point, instead of saying yes, we destroyed the infrastructure, we
Mm.
didn't invest anything in our population, they are saying Israel or America are behind the demonstrations instead of actually solving the problem. So it shows a regime that is in a state of financial
Mhm.
bankruptcy, but also ideological bankruptcy.
Oh,
It cannot even justify itself at this point.
yeah, it sounded that way, but I'm really disappointed at the United Nations at the same time. I don't know why at this point there is no strong voice among those who support Gaza, the Palestinians. They're not voicing out support against towards the victims or towards the demonstrators. Nothing. They're so silent, and I am so disgusted at them, really, at that point.
That,
Yeah.
look, the point is that there is a kind of leftist agenda
Mhm.
that sees the West as the ultimate evil all over the world. Whatever happens
Mhm.
in Venezuela, in Africa, in Tehran, in Gaza, always the bad guys are the West, the Western democracies,
Mhm.
the US, and of course Israel, and the good guys are all the others. That doesn't matter that there, in many cases, there are terrorist, violent regimes like Maduro's,
Mhm.
and so on. So basically, the I would say the automatic reply of
Mhm.
all the leftist establishment, which
Mhm.
affects a lot, of course, uh, the UN, but also many countries all over the world, in Asia, in Africa, have basically imbibed this ideology for 40, 50 years.
Mhm.
Like the West is colonialist, and all the Western powers of basically democracies, meaning uh, somehow South Korea and Japan are also the West and are also colonialist.
Mhm.
Uh, and somehow the problems in Africa, in Asia, in Venezuela, in Iran are because of this Western democracy, which is nonsense. But it is a coherent ideology, uh, dividing the world in black and white. And so, in this way, even the terrorists of Gaza
Mhm.
or the Ayatollahs are the good guys because they are against Israel. Sorry, Israel and the US. So it's not. I mean, if you look at it closely, it's totally irrational. But as a kind of overwhelming ideology, I find in many places, even among Western liberals,
Mhm.
somehow they say this. But certainly, if you go to
Yeah.
India
If
or to
you if
China, the
you hear
population is like imbued with these ideas.
Yeah, if you listen to the liberal media, you listen to that part, of history and stressing that part of colonialism of, yeah, even in Japan, so I am kind of disappointed at what they do because, they spread information and um yeah, I mean, a lot of people, and the other day, I actually asked some people, who speaks the Hebrew, and they did not know what the Hebrew was.
The Hebrew language.
It's like, I didn't have words on that. And, I know, some people, who are related to Christianity obviously know Hebrew. There are those who have studied in Israel, of course. But just, I really think at this point, um, um, Japan should be really learning what Israel is about because a lot of people misunderstand and believe in Nekwa and believe in all the propaganda what's going on. And the media does not discern the difference between propaganda and the facts. So it's pretty much a mess. And I get messages from people whose family members are Japanese. Some people are Japanese, and they asked me to make, something uh for Japanese to understand about Zionism and also the Hebrew. And I don't have animosities against
Isn't
it.
there any kind of material like
No, I just decided
informational
to,
materials in
yes.
Japanese? No, there
No,
isn't.
this they asked me to create something, so I decided that's why I'm adding the Japanese subtitles, explaining in Japanese right now because it has to be a little different from English version. So,
Of
but
course.
but I thought that it is important in a sense because I have to be able to explain what it is, really, because that's what I believe in, really. So, yeah,
Yeah,
but
and also a lot of times when you discuss, let's say, the Gaza war,
Mhm,
uh, aside from the current events happening,
mhm,
a lot of understanding what is going on is based on your knowing the
mhm,
background to it.
yeah,
So, for someone looking at Gaza without knowing any history,
mhm,
what is the reason that Hamas attacks Israel?
mhm,
What is the reason that Gaza is not exactly an independent state? So there are historical reasons for this, and
yeah,
without understanding, you cannot really understand what is going on. Um, so I think that you're correct that, okay.
mhm,
So as I was saying, sorry, um, I think that the understanding of any events needs also some kind of understanding of history. For
yeah,
example, even these days, the I would say the what is happening in East Asia
mhm,
with China accusing Japan all kinds of strange accusations
exactly,
is
yes,
is you cannot understand what's going on if you don't learn about history because China is using all kinds of claims from 80, 90, 100 years ago
yes,
about who owns these islands and what the past is and so on. And clearly, someone who doesn't know the history would get the wrong impression because the Chinese are talking about things that happened 8 years ago as if they happened last year,
yeah,
right? I
and at
mean,
the
they're,
same time, they say something contradictory to, for example, the agreement that, they made with Japan, even.
yes. Exactly. So, one, the facts. Secondly, when they happened. And
Mhm.
thirdly, of course, Japan, the Chinese are arguing that they are the heirs of the Chinese government of Chiang Kai-shek, which is
Yeah.
not true. So, anyway, again, all these discussions are, you cannot really get to the bottom of them without knowing the history. So
Exactly.
in the same manner, with the Israeli-Arab conflict, with what is going on in Gaza, uh, many of the claims that are connected to this conflict have to
Mhm.
do with things that happened 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and so on. And
Yeah.
so, one, many of the arguments are simply, I would say, other lies or described in the wrong way.
Totally propaganda. 100% purely. Yes.
But sometimes also many people do not know the facts. Nothing to do with propaganda. They simply
Even the
they hear
Japanese.
terms
Yeah.
that they do not understand. Someone says the Nakba,
Yeah.
someone says the Palestinian state, all kinds of things that people they don't know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So I mean, in many
I think
cases,
we should be talking about that in the next
yes,
podcast as well, because I
yes,
realized that a lot of people believe that there was a Palestinian state. So,
exactly. Exactly. I mean, not only Japan is relatively removed from the Middle East, so it's understandable that many people do not know all these facts. But even in Europe and America, I
mm,
hear young people chanting against Israel, and then you ask them,
I'm tired of
"What
it.
river is that?
Yeah.
When was there a Palestinian state?
Mm,
When did they? Where? when did the Palestinians ever ask for a state?
Mm.
They never asked for a state. They asked for Israel to be destroyed. So all this is very basic information. Even before we get to the lies, people do not know the facts uh, at all, and they're simply hearing something like, "Yes, Israel is attacking Gaza." So of course, if you don't have the context, why that is happening, what actually is happening, how did it start, why did it start, you can get the wrong impression. So my belief is really there is a need for uh, one more discussion like we are having, but I
Yes.
think even more than that, if there were on the web more like short expositions of Jewish and Israeli history and facts about the Middle East,
Yes.
not only in English but also in Japanese and other languages, then it would help people also to understand better what is going on.
I really, really feel that way. And at least, I am Japanese, and I really feel that it is very, very important for people to understand because I really thought, I wrote about this, suppose, you know, somebody doesn't know about Japan and, you were asked what Japanese is about, it's like, like missing the context, like,
Of course.
so. Yeah. So, yeah,
Also,
so
I would like to add one thing.
mhm,
Many times, the image of a country from
mhm,
outside is created by some kind of a few images of the
mhm,
country that people get the idea that that is the country. It's
mhm.
like some people in Japan, sorry, in the world think about Japan, so they say they see a picture of cherry blossom, they see a picture of geishas, they see a picture of Mount Fuji.
Yeah,
Of course,
yeah,
all the things are true, but this is not Japan. This is only a small part of Japan.
exactly.
Japan is many other things. The same with Israel. People who only will hear about the media and
Mhm,
see what is happening now, the conflict in Gaza, so they will get a very small understanding of Israel
mhm,
instead of the real understanding what's going on. It's one of the efficiency of modern media is
mhm.
also becoming a kind of obstacle to understanding things because it makes us think that two or three pictures explain everything, which is never true.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say that it's always better to try to go a bit deeper, and I hope that's what we are doing here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I really appreciate you for taking time, for this because you have to just go run, after this. But, I really, yeah, I thank you very much for explaining a lot about Iran and also about Israel. And I hope to discuss various issues and topics in the future, in the coming future with you.
We're always glad to be in your to come to your podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So have a nice day.
You too. Goodbye.